This is the golden era of entrepreneurship. On the news, in our feeds, at the coffee shops, the new age entrepreneur is the face of constant innovation and creativity. They generate job opportunities, boost the economy, and in the words of Joseph Schumpeter, are responsible for creative destruction. There is enough evidence to back this. But what we know little about is what successful entrepreneurs do after they make their big exit.
Right from the beginning, we were very interested in understanding the consequences of success, because success creates this financial autonomy and gives you a lot of latitude and leeway in taking action.
One may argue that entrepreneurship perpetuates economic inequality. But in the age of these new economic elites, we ask the question, when does benevolence follow commercial success? Who gives back? The idea was to understand how personal backgrounds of successful commercial entrepreneurs increase the odds of their philanthropy. But philanthropy here doesn't mean cutting checks for a good cause.
What we were interested in looking at was whether these entrepreneurs are also motivated to use their expertise or experience and resource and connections in systematically giving back to society and making a larger social change. So in a way, provide evidence for how does commercial entrepreneurship benefit the larger society.
The team utilized a status characteristic framework which helped them slot these successful individuals into informal social hierarchies such as lower and higher status, irrespective of their actual accomplishments. Anything that one is born into, caste, gender, race, is categorized as ascribed social status. If one acquires tertiary education or graduation from a prestigious university abroad, this would be categorized as achieved social status. This helped them conceptualize how these social hierarchies influenced an entrepreneur's involvement in philanthropy.
So given the novelty of the research question and the context, we decided to do a mixed method study in which we did some qualitative interviews with successful entrepreneurs in India, and we also supplemented it with a quantitative data set that we hand collected and put together for the analysis, which gave us a sample of about 673 successful entrepreneurs in India between the time period 2003 to 2013. So we had two major hypotheses. One is that successful commercial entrepreneurs from lower ascribed status characteristics, such as a lower caste or gender in the Indian society, will be more likely to engage in social change activities after they become successful.
There were clear statistical patterns in the research showing that lowest caste entrepreneurs are most likely to give back to society.
And the reasoning behind this is that achieving success by traversing a difficult path, which is typically associated with lower caste or gender in India, will make it more likely that such successful entrepreneurs perceive the need or are more empathetic towards the less privileged individuals. If one is a high caste entrepreneur, then the probability of giving back is about 8.3%, but the same probability increases to 25% if one is a lowest caste entrepreneur. And the second hypothesis that we tested was successful commercial entrepreneurs who are associated with higher achieved status characteristics, such as achieving a prestigious education abroad in a first world country, are more likely to give back to society.
As a young adult, when you move to a developed economy, you see the dramatic contrast in social infrastructure. The deficiencies and problems back home become more visible and prominent.
We observed that the probability of giving back is greater for those entrepreneurs who are returnee entrepreneurs. That is, they went abroad for an education and then came back to India. Specifically, the probability of giving back and getting engaged in philanthropy increases from about 12% for those who are not returnees to about 22% for those who are returnee entrepreneurs. There's this critical sociology literature about high-class giving or charitable giving by the elite, which sort of suggests 2 points of view.
One is that high society elites set up foundations to mainly fund highbrow activities that the wealthy directly benefit from rather than give for human causes. The other is where there is an expectation held against the rich that obligates them to be more generous while dealing with the less privileged. But there is very little evidence to support these points of views.
There is no straightforward relationship between affluence on one hand and generosity on the other hand. So in other words, what we are trying to say is that we don't know whether all these findings are generalizable to the behavior of what we term as new economic elites in an emerging economy like India.
By new economic elite, we mean independent entrepreneurs, self-made men and women, without a clear connection or allegiance to large family business groups.
So we've seen that entrepreneurship can act as a vehicle for social mobility, especially for economy in general. But what we don't know, and I think what this paper shows, is that entrepreneurship can also be good for the broader society. Successful entrepreneurs are motivated and do get involved in social change activities, and therefore they can be fertile sources of philanthropy, they can be fertile sources of social change, especially in a democratic society like India. There is so much philanthropic giving, there is so much philanthropic capital in the country right now. Knowing that there is this group of people who are great problem solvers, who are great organization builders, who are motivated to bring about social change, I think there is a lot of scope to sort of engage them, and as I mentioned, others with a similar background, which might not be entrepreneurs, but might be, people, successful people in other professions or C-suite executives and so on, to systematically engage them towards social change efforts. I think there's a lot of scope to do something like that in our country.